Burning.
Detected. Reaction on fuel sensor. February chamber fully loaded. Transfer unit setup completed. Good luck.
Energy core temperatures reaching dangerous
What catchy
levels.
music, am I right? Can't speak for you guys, but I was rocking out over here. This series is known for its awesome music, or like this game. Burning Rangers was one of the last Saturn releases in North America, being released in May 1998. Think about it, that's only a few months before the original Metal Gear Solid and Ocarina of Time. Surely this game was just as influential and as memorable, right? Yeah, I didn't think so. But honestly, when this game was released, on the Saturn, it turned more than a few heads because it was one of the most technically impressive games released on the system. It was created on a heavily modified version of the Nights into Dreams engine. It was actually one of the only games on the Saturn to feature transparency effects, in this case with the fire. Burning Rangers, like I said, was developed by Sonic Team, the guys behind the Sonic the Hedgehog series and Nights into Dreams. It takes place in the far future where hazards are all but extinct, well, except for fires, obviously. You take on the role of either Shu or Tillis and battle fires in 4 distinct futuristic locations. You don't just battle fires, you literally destroy them with a special laser gun that transforms the fire into crystals, which you then use to power your shields. And it works a lot like the rings do in Sonic the Hedgehog series. One hit from an explosion or fire and all your crystals go flying all over the place, causing you to quickly reclaim the ones you can. If you get hit while you don't have any crystals, yep, it's game over. And fire comes in a variety of forms, as you see in the videos. There's orange fire, which requires just one little blast. The blue fire requires a charge shot or several standard blasts. There's even some green fire that jumps all over the place. And you just have to use different techniques when taking care of all these different forms of fire. Along the way, you'll rescue survivors, and you need a minimum of 5 crystals to teleport them out of the area. What I found always kind of interesting is that you're not forced to save anybody. I mean, there are certain key individuals that you need to save, but for the most part, you don't have to save anyone at all, and your score will change depending on how many survivors you actually save. While battling the fire as an enemy, I find works really, really well. I found the actual enemies, if you want to call them that, something like security robots and some of the boss characters, kind of weird, and I think it would have been cool if the fire would have had sort of like a life of its own, and that would have been your like boss sort of encounters, if you will. But whatever, it works. One of the most interesting aspects is the unique navigation system, and the reason for this we'll get in just a tad. But unlike other 3D games out there, there's no map only your teammate Chris, who directs you in your next objective. So you'll press a button and she'll say things like keep going forward, or you've reached a dead end, or go left, go right, stuff like that. It's pretty unique. Oh, and before I forget, don't worry, you'll see a lot of different gameplay footage here, but there's a pretty good tutorial that fills you in on how everything works. Speaking of individual gameplay, it hasn't aged too well. It took me virtually all day to get the footage you're seeing here because I didn't want to look like a total noob. While you navigate the environments with the analog stick on the 3D control pad or the D-pad on the regular Saturn controllers, you can press the down direction at any time you hear like a whistle sound, and you're supposed to do a backflip to get out of the way. The problem is sometimes you can't even see the fire because the camera is just so awful. You press the L and R buttons to pivot the camera left or right, just like all the old 3D games. And, you know, we take it for granted how much the gameplay has improved because of the second analog stick. And the same thing with firing your weapon. It will automatically fire towards the closest fire that you're facing. But as you can see in the video, it doesn't work as well as games do today. So it can be very frustrating. I think the biggest problem, though, has always been the game's length. There are only 4 levels, each one taking, once you know what you're doing, around 10 to 15 minutes. That's not a very long game at all. Now, this is where I was saying about the navigation system. You see, once you beat the game, there are randomly generated levels that replace the standard levels. The only problem is because the graphics are, I mean, they're impressive for the Saturn at this point in time, but today it's, you know, they do look much the same. So even though the areas would be different, they still have the same overall feel to them. I should also mention that when you complete the game, you can enter unique passwords which allow you to play as different characters in the different levels, so you can actually be more than just Shu and Tillis, which is kind of neat. I should also mention that the graphics haven't aged particularly well either. There's tons of flickering and pop-ins all over the place, which coupled with the camera make progression extremely tedious. Boss battles, as you've already seen, can be quite challenging because you're not always sure if you're like how you're going to go from one platform to the next platform when the camera's literally like jumping all over the damn place, or the fact that some of the walls are clipping and you're not 100% sure what's a wall and what's not. Most of the environments feature confined rooms or corridors, which can make certain areas appear exactly the same. Again, these are all common problems with earlier 3D games, especially with the Saturn, which never really had the opportunity to grow because it was limited in its 3D prowess. I did enjoy the variety of locations though, and this wasn't just nostalgia kicking in, they're actually quite impressive. You go from a space station to an underwater facility where fires break out, and it's truly creative, making exploring interesting if it wasn't just kind of mundane with some of the corridors and whatnot. The character designs and colorful choices for the levels are also classic Sega, and you'll know what I mean if you are a Sega fan. They just have that certain charm to them. The animated cutscenes also work quite well. The voice acting can be hilariously bad though sometimes, while other times it works pretty good. Chris, the woman that's your navigation and leader of the team, she by far has the best voice acting of the bunch. As for the tunes, well, it was composed by the same guys behind Nights into Dreams, and actually it remains a classic soundtrack which has a few of its tunes replicated in other Sega games over the years. Now, I always wanted a sequel to Burning Rangers, and I think Sega missed a real opportunity to do something kind of cool with the Wii and the Wiimote. Think of it sort of like Luigi's Mansion with the vacuum. It would have been really neat, but in reverse. You know, you're shooting, you're aiming, you're doing something by moving the remote to take out the fires. I think that could have been kind of neat. Sadly, I doubt we'll ever see Shu and Tillis again, unless it's in some sort of compilation title or something like that. Anyways, for anyone looking for Burning Rangers for themselves, be warned that the North American version typically runs for about $85 to $100 on eBay, depending on the quality of the box and what have you. You could import the game for a lot cheaper if you want the Japanese version. The only thing is the experience obviously would be significantly different given all the dialogue. Now comes a time, like, you know, for you to decide. is this worth it? Well, the thing is, it is a great game, but it's mainly a great game because of the nostalgia. It really has not aged all that well thanks to the camera and the graphics, but most of the time you can overlook the graphics. But early 3D games, they're just not too easy to get into today if, you know, they didn't revolutionize something. Okay, it's certainly one of the most impressive 3D titles on the system, though. And, you know, as long as you're warned about the gameplay, you know, you might actually enjoy it. It's a fun little arcade game. We really take for granted, though, how much gameplay was improved with that second analog stick. Well, there you go, guys. That's Sega's Burning Rangers.
Okay, we're all set to go.
Burning chip, prepare for launch.